A large portion of the Jewish nation has returned to its homeland, but the heart, soul, and mind of much of the Jewish nation are still in exile mode. This state of affairs must and will inevitably change. This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are speaking with the head of Machon, Shilo, Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom.
The rabbi has often stated that all Jews may eat kitniyot, legumes, on Pesach. We have received many queries as to whether, if one has observed the custom to not eat kitniyot during previous years, can one simply decide to drop this custom, or must one be released from one's vows in a process known as Hatarat Nedarim?
The brief answer is all Jews all over the world are permitted to eat kitniyot. That is my view. According to some, it is necessary to do Hatarat Nedarim, and according to others, it is not. But certainly, if one has done Hatarat Nedarim, it is certainly mutar. That is the brief answer. And now I will explain with more detail and background. There is a view amongst the Poskim, which is also the view of the Shulchan Aruch in Yora De'ah Siman Resh Yud Daled, that if a person has adopted a certain Halakhic position or custom, more precisely a custom, and was aware that it was mutar, that the thing that he is accepting upon himself as prohibited is in fact mutar, is in fact permissible, but he chooses to take it upon himself, then this custom is binding until and unless it is made again permissible for him by doing Hatarat Nedarim, which is not really a ceremony, but a Halakhic action, usually done with a rabbi and two other people, or three rabbis, whereby the person is told, if you had known certain things and you are interested in dropping this minhag, and had you known certain things before you took it upon yourself, you would not have done so, then you are now permitted to do so, as can be done with other nedarim, other vows. So the Shulchan Aruch writes, based on the view of many Rishonim, that when there is a minhag that was based on some reasonable halachic logic, rationale, and people have accepted this minhag, they are required to follow that minhag until and unless they do Hatarat Nedarim. And this is also the view that I heard recently in a recorded shiur of Harav Yaakov Yosef, Zichron Livracha, the oldest son of Harav Ovadia Yosef, Zichron Livracha. I received a package of DVDs, which included hundreds of shiurim that he gave, Rav Yaakov Yosef, on Halakha, and on the first disc on the Halachot pertaining to Bar-Hayim, he gives a shiur regarding Klalei Hora'ah. Klalei Hora'ah is the list of rules and principles, rules of thumb, and general principles that many Poskim work with. And he explained that regarding the question of Kitniyot, for example, he related that he and others had spoken to Harav Mashash. Harav Mashash was the senior Rav of the Moroccan community here in Israel. He himself was already a famous rabbi in Morocco before he came to Israel many decades ago. And it is known that many Moroccans also had the custom of not eating Kitniyot during Pesach. And Rav Mashash was of the view, as opposed to Rav Ovadia Yosef, who thought otherwise, that Moroccan Jews had to maintain this minhag and continue to refrain from eating kitniyot. And yet, he said in a conversation that is reported by Rav Yaakov Yosef, that he agreed that if a Moroccan Jew wishes to eat kitniyot, he may do Hatarat Nedarim, explaining that had he known that it would be difficult, or that there are many opinions that say that it's mutar and there's no need to maintain this custom, then he would not have taken it upon himself. And if he does Hatarat Nedarim, a Jew from Morocco also is permitted to eat kitniyot. I can also add, as an aside, that in the same shiur, Rav Yaakov Yosef related another story regarding a a person, an Ashkenazi Jew who married a Sephardi woman, who once came to Rav Yaakov Yosef and said, I want to do away with all the Ashkenazi minhagim and Piskei Halacha in general. I want to adopt the Halakhic code of the Bet Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, and the Shulchan Aruch, and I don't want to have to follow the Rama and Ashkenazi Piskei Halacha and minhagim any longer. Rav Yaakov Yosef relates that he said to this person, I cannot matir, I cannot allow you to do this. He doesn't explain exactly why he couldn't, but he said, but you have a great Ashkenazi rabbi here in Yerushalayim. He referred to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and he said, go to him and tell him what you'd like to do, and see if he agrees. So he relates that this Jew went to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. It was during Chol HaMoed Sukkot. He found him at home sitting in his sukkah with two of his sons, and he came before Rav Auerbach and he said, this is what I would like to do. And Rav Auerbach said to him, do you want to simply drop one specific minhag or halacha that the Ashkenazim follow, or do you wish to altogether drop the entire system of Ashkenazi halacha and minhag and adopt the Sephardi system? And he said, no, I want to do a complete changeover in my life. I want to become a Sephardi, so to speak. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach asked him, do you regret having taken upon the Ashkenazi halachot and customs and not having said that you're doing so b'li neder, without taking it upon yourself as a neder, as a vow? And he said, yes, I regret having done so. And he said, therefore, in that case, you are now, henceforth, you are permitted to adopt all the Sephardi minhagim and Piskei Halacha, and from this moment on, you are therefore effectively like a Sephardi. So we see that the major poskim in this generation as well, and for hundreds of years have understood and have claimed that even Ashkenazim who have followed certain customs or Piskei Halacha that were common amongst the Ashkenazim, if they do a Hatarat Nedarim, they are able to change course, halakhically, that is to say, to change course and to adopt a different practice or a different halakha, a different halakhic opinion. That is according to the view that such a custom requires Hatarat Nedarim. There is, however, another aspect to this question, and that is as follows. What if a person adopts a certain practice, shall we say in this case, not to eat Kitniyot on Pesach, and he does so because he believes, or he was told, or his forefathers were told, or understood somehow, that it is asur to eat Kitniyot. Not that it's a minhag which we're taking upon ourselves, even though we know it's actually permissible, but we are doing so because we believe it is asur. If a person has such a custom based on such a misconception, what is the halacha? Regarding this, the Yerushalmi states in the fourth perek of Masechet Pesachim, Yerushalmi states explicitly that such a minhag is not binding, and the person, if he comes to ask a chacham, a rabbi, whether he can drop such a minhag, once he explains why he thought it was necessary to do so, and the rabbi tells him, no, it's not so, there was never any prohibition to do this thing, and you were mistaken, the minhag is simply null and void and does not require anything further. And this is also the view, again, of the Shulchan Aruch. In the same place in the Shulchan Aruch, Yerodei Asiman Reish Yud Daled, the Shulchan Aruch writes that if the minhag is based on a misconception that something is in fact forbidden, that it is asur min hadin, as opposed to something which is mutar, which we took upon ourselves not to do, then such a minhag may simply be dropped. So that is the view of the Shulchan Aruch, and this is the case with regards to the custom of not eating Kitniyot on Pesach, because we have three Rishonim, three medieval sages, who tell us explicitly that this custom of not eating Kitniyot on Pesach is based on precisely such a misconception. The earliest source that mentions this custom altogether is a source quoted by Rabbeinu Manoach in his Perush, in his commentary on the Rambam, in Chov Hames U'Masar Perek Hey. He quotes from Sefer HaMinhagot, which is a book written by Rabbeinu Asher Milunel. Rabbeinu Asher Milunel passed away in the year 1215 approximately, CE. And Rabbeinu Asher Milunel mentions, he lived in the south of France, in Provence, and he mentions that there is such a custom amongst many people not to eat Kitniyot on Pesach. And he questions and in fact negates the possibility of such a custom being based on any reasonable halakhic rationale. He says those who have this custom claim that it is because there is some kind of hametz, there is an aspect of himus, of fermentation, which exists when eating kitniyot, in the preparation or cooking of kitniyot. He rejects this out of hand, and he says, and therefore, if people thought that it was asur to eat kitniyot for this reason, that when you cook things like rice or beans, they expand in the water, and therefore they swell up, just like a dough rises and swells when it is allowed to ferment. If this was their reason for not eating kitniyot on Pesach, then this is clearly a mistake. This is a minhag based on a ta'uth, and as such, the minhag has no validity, and therefore they can simply drop this minhag, even though they have previously adhered to this practice. We also have the testimony of Rabbeinu Yitzchak Kurvel, who died in the year 1280 CE. He also mentions this custom, and he says again, those who have this custom claim that kitniyot are some minor form of hametz, and he also again rejects this claim because it is clearly false. It clearly contradicts that which Hazal say in the Mishnah and the Talmud and everywhere. There is no basis, there can be no basis of such a claim, he says. And therefore he tries to offer a different explanation. That is that sometimes certain kitniyot can be ground into a kind of flour, which then may be confused with real wheat flour, for example. And therefore people may end up cooking by mistake using wheat flour when they think it's flour made from kitniyot on Pesach, and for this reason he says maybe that was the basis of the minhag. But he first states clearly that those people who have this practice, who have this custom of not eating kitniyot, claim that they are doing so because cooking kitniyot on Pesach involves a form of hametz. And we have a third Rishon, the Maharam Halawa, who was a Talmid of the Rashba in the 14th century in Spain. And he writes also in the name of certain sages in France, in Tzorfat, he writes, Rabotenu shebet Tzorfat, he says they claim that any food such as beans, rice, and other legumes, which when cooked in water swell in size, that this is some kind of secondary degree or form of hametz. And he of course rejects this also, because as we said, there is no basis for such a claim. It is clearly incorrect. So here we have three Rishonim who explicitly state that the reason given by those who adhered to this custom, the original reason given was that this involves a form of hametz, that kitniyot is some kind of secondary minor form of hametz. And this claim is clearly mistaken. It was only because it was so obviously a mistake that Rabbeinu Yitzchak Kovel in his book, the Smak, Sefer Mitzvot Katan, tried to offer a different suggestion, a different reason. But in fact, this was the reason given by the people who had this custom. And we have three Rishonim who tell us this piece of information, and those three Rishonim cannot be wrong, they cannot be mistaken. It's not possible that these three Rishonim all made the same mistake and all heard the same incorrect rumor. We must accept their statements at face value, and that this was the reason for this custom growing up, and that it is therefore a minhag based on ta'ut, on mistake. And therefore, as such a minhag does not even require Hatarat Nedarim. And that in fact is my view, that because this minhag is clearly initially from its earliest inception based on a mistake, a misconception, some kind of notion that in some ways resembles certain Karaite notions regarding the definition of hametz, that kitniyot are some kind of secondary form of hametz. Seeing that this is the case, such a minhag is a minhag based on ta'ut, on halakhic mistake or misconception, and therefore has no validity, and therefore Hatarat Nedarim is not required.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.